figure some of that out. But all right, we are live once again. Conscious Approach live stream in the building. JB Wins, Dogon SS. The date is Tuesday, February 1st. Live and in effect. We had to make some last minute adjustments to what our original plan for tonight's stream was because the Brian Flores NFL lawsuit news broke literally like 30 minutes before we said that we was going to come on here and do this. So on the fly, we made an adjustment to add that to the talking points. But we are going to start off first. Thanks for everybody for tuning into the channel. Obviously, as always, certainly appreciate the support. Continue to support logical content. I certainly appreciate it. The first story that we're going to get into is something that trended over the weekend. So younger people might not know who this person is, but Bridget Fonda was a big deal in the 90s. She comes from this big Hollywood family. So her dad was Henry Fonda. I think her brother is Peter Fonda and her aunt is Jane Fonda. These are all like really famous Hollywood people. They've been in a crap ton of movies and, you know, they're one of those Hollywood royalty families, so to speak. But Bridget Fonda is a part of that family tree, and she was trending over the weekend because she was paparazzi'd. So she retired from acting way back in the year 2002. I think most people, especially Black people, will probably know her from the movie Jackie Brown. She was also in a bunch of other stuff too, though. Her last movie, I think, was Romeo Must Die with Jet Li. So she's been in a lot of stuff, but she retired from acting in 2002, and she kind of just disappeared off the Hollywood scene because she wasn't about that Hollywood life. She kind of wanted to do a low-key thing, be a family person, like be a wife and a mother and raise her kid and kind of be out of the limelight. She didn't want to have her life sort of tainted by that, you know, Hollywood, you know, superstar type scene out there. So she retired just to do the family thing and the wife thing and the mother thing. And so she literally has not been in the public eye since like 2002. And so the reason why she trended over the weekend is because paparazzi got photography of her. And apparently this is the first time that she's been photographed since she retired. She's, you know, I don't follow her. So I don't know whether she's been a recluse intentionally and nobody really cared to pay attention to her, or whether this is a situation where she was literally going out of her way to kind of disappear and never be seen or heard from again. How you can manage that living in California and for 13 years, 20 years at this point. I don't know how you pull that off. Yeah, that's a long time to pull off not being seen or heard from. But she trended over the weekend, and it was a big deal because her appearance is vastly different than when she was in the public eye. And so people immediately jumped to the conclusion that this is a form of body shaming and fat shaming because of how she looked. So real quick, I'm going to go ahead and just share this story. This is from the Daily Mail. This is the story that they ran about Bridget Fonda looking unrecognizable at 58 years old. So real quick, what it says here is Bridget Fonda, who retired from acting in 2002 after appearing in a number of critically acclaimed films like Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, looked unrecognizable as she stepped out in Los Angeles on Wednesday. The former Hollywood siren, 58, was captured carting her and husband Danny Elfman's 17-year-old son Oliver around the city in her silver luxury Land Rover. Fonda was last photographed publicly in 2009 while attending the premiere of Tarantino's World War II epic Inglourious Bastards, having stepped out of the spotlight to focus on raising her son at the family's ranch in Santa Barbara. All right, so I guess this side by side here is the last time that she was seen in 2009. So that's her on the right in 2009, and that's her on the left in 2022. So you can see the distinction here. You can see how she used to look, and you can see how she looks now. This is a verified, credible story, so that is her. You know, this is how she looks now. You know, that's pretty much the gist of it. This is how she looks. So the reason why this is a big deal is because obviously with her being um, with her being someone who is no longer in the public eye, her appearance is obviously the reason why a story like this would trend. Because if she does not look the way that she looks, is there any other motivation for, having this story put out there? And because it seems to have been unsolicited in that regard and unmotivated, the general public sort of leapt to her defense to brand her as a victim of body shaming in the modern day sense. And if Daily Mail put their story out on their Twitter feed, and the comments were fast and furious. Most people were coming to Bridget Fonda's defense, and they were denigrating the Daily Mail for engaging in body shaming. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because a while back we did a segment on this live stream discussing Lizzo. Lizzo, female hip hop star, whatever she is, pop, hip hop, R&B. I don't know what category she falls into musically. But we did a segment talking about her because she routinely engages in victimhood on social media, blaming the world and society for fat shaming her, and sort of going at her for her appearance, despite the fact that she insists on unrealistically pushing boundaries of physical attractiveness and sort of in an effort to create the world in her image in which people can wear whatever they want, do and say whatever they want, and not be adversely judged for it. And so I thought that this was a good opportunity to point out the difference between what could be perceived as legit body shaming and what I would categorize as fake body shaming on the part of people like Lizzo and other people who have sort of, talked that same talk, people like Amber Rose. The difference between a person like Amber Rose and a person like Lizzo is, not Amber Rose, I'm sorry. The difference between a person like Bridget Fonda and a person like Lizzo is Bridget Fonda, in lieu of her weight gain, never went out in public wearing see-through dresses and wearing, short skirts and dresses where her whole butt is literally hanging out. Bridget Fonda has never gone to NBA games wearing a mesh see-through one piece where you see her entire butt. And then when people critique her for wearing that type of outfit, given what her body type is, she engages in victimhood by calling everybody out for body shaming. So Bridget Fonda has never done that. But, the inverse of that is you have a person like Lizzo who insists on wearing these types of outfits and then calling everybody out for body shaming on behalf of her right to be able to wear those kinds of outfits. And I think my point has always been, and I think you may have agreed, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you're not going to create the world in your image. So you have to be cognizant of the fact that you're going to get that type of criticism heaped your way, given the fact that you have that particular body type. Now, that's not to say that you cannot wear those outfits. It's just to say that if you are going to truly be comfortable in your own skin, then don't pay people who criticize you any attention and just keep wearing what you wear. But when you get online and you play the victim card and you call people out for body shaming, it creates the idea that you do in fact care that people are criticizing you for wearing that. And if you're going to care that people are criticizing you for wearing these types of outfits, then I highly recommend that you get yourself a nutritionist and a personal trainer and you get in the gym and you lose the weight so that you can wear these things and not worry about people having something to say about it. We live in the world of practicality and realism. We don't live in the world of rainbows and unicorns. In the world of practicality and realism, people like Oprah, who lose weight because they want to feel better about themselves, embrace the fact that they're going to have to lose the weight. People like Adele do the same thing. People like Rebel Wilson, the actress who was in those Pitch Perfect movies. She was somebody who basically was cultivating a career for herself as a plus size, funny comedic actress. But, she still felt as though in order to be the best version of herself, she's going to have to get in the gym and lose some of the weight. And to her credit, that's what she did. She's not going to have to worry about people criticizing her for wearing two-piece bikinis because she's willing to take on the challenge of getting into the gym and losing the weight. So I just have an issue with people who want to play the victim card and criticize people for body shaming. It makes it seem as though you are living in the world of rainbows and unicorns. Now, if Bridget Fonda wants to come out and publicly talk about body shaming, to me, she has more of a right to do that than a person like Lizzo. Because as I said before, Bridget Fonda has never walked the red carpet of the Academy Awards wearing see-through dresses. With those little nipple sticker things over her nipples, stuff like that. You don't see Bridget Fonda doing that at her advanced age with the weight gain. But someone like Lizzo, who is, quite overweight, I don't know whether she has issues with losing weight or not. That's not my problem, not my concern. My issue is you can't wear that stuff and then, ascribe to victimhood. There are ways to be sexy and appropriate with the way that you wear your outfits, despite the fact that despite insisting on dressing like, an Instagram model or an OnlyFans chick or a stripper by wearing see-through dresses. Like, you cannot be Lizzo and dress like Cardi B. It's just not going to work for you. I'm sorry if this is news to you, but this is the world that we live in. So this provides us with a unique opportunity to look at a stark contrast between what could be interpreted as true body shaming and what I would interpret as fake body shaming on the part of a person like Lizzo. And this is not a commentary necessarily to go at Lizzo per se. She just so happens to be someone who provides a perfect example for us to be able to analyze this particular dynamic in this way. But when it comes to Bridget Fonda, I'm kind of to her defense in this regard. There was no need to photograph her. She wasn't drawing attention to herself. She was just sort of running errands, and the paparazzo decided that this was going to be something that can trend because of how different she looks compared to the way that she looked when she was in her prime. And so because it was unwarranted and unsolicited on the part of the subject of the photographs, I'd be more inclined to buy the idea that this is a form of body shaming. But to anything other than that, I'm going to go the other way. So that was pretty much how I took that particular story.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. As far as the body shaming aspect of Miss Fonda, I guess the initial article, was coming in pretty hot. Making fun, I guess, or just just uh, making a spectacle out of the situation. And
Yeah,
so, I mean, it is a spectacle looking at her from somebody who got used to seeing her on the big screen type of situation. So, seeing her look like a regular, grandma, she's just like a grandma in those
yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
And her just looking so normal, I guess it is a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. But to me, honestly, it's a admirable shift for somebody who was living in the Hollywood lifestyle to shift over and live a quote unquote regular life. So with that, I guess comes eating freely, and so she doesn't have to worry about any roles or nothing like that. She can just do whatever she does, and she gained weight, and but is she looking like a supermodel? No. Is she looking like just somebody that's I don't want to say she's overweight. She's
No,
not.
she is. But it's
She's
like you said, she looks like a grandma.
yeah, she just looks like a grandma, and
Yeah,
so I'm not expecting her to hit the gym every other day type of situation, even though she could. But
right.
no one's expecting her to. So it's just one of those situations where she just looks like good old granny. She looks like a happy woman. It looks like she bakes good cookies and good pies. And so I don't know. I was happy for her, actually, when I saw this. It sucks that that was traditional. I would say that is a traditional form of body shaming. I think that's a good definition of how she was treated in the situation. But me, more or less, I look past the body shaming because the internet, they're just out here doing everything. They're everybody's defenders. Everybody's caping for somebody out here. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't really say anything about anybody nowadays. Somebody's going to be up in arms. And so I'm not surprised people are up in arms about this. But honestly, when I saw her, she looked at peace, even though she looks like, whatever. Some would
Mhm.
say, oh, she looks like crap. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there's people out there that are saying that she looks like crap and she looks like this, she looks like that. But to me, she looked like she's at peace and she's chilling and she's not worried about any of those Hollywood parties, those Hollywood people um, that are just people's friends to just network.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it looks like she's away from that foolishness and got a real dose of reality wherever she's at. So I'm happy for her. I'm glad she made that decision. In researching for this, I had looked up some stuff and found out about her family. I guess, like you said, Hollywood royalty type of situation. And whatever segment I was looking at, it was like, yeah, she can get into a role in a Netflix thing and blah blah blah. And it's like, I don't think she wants that.
No, she doesn't. She officially retired.
Yeah, I don't think she
Yeah.
wants anything to do with any of that stuff.
Yeah.
They were talking about her workload. Said she did it like she worked for like 12 11 12 years straight, did over 30 films in that time space. That's a lot of work, you
Hmm.
know. And
No.
so, especially coming from a lifestyle where, you know, being a celebrity was pretty much already a given for her, kind of, sort of. And then, so her being born in and raised and groomed into it, did she really have a life kind of thing? So I think she really got to this point in her life, in her adulthood, where she was like, you know what, I am done with this. I was just doing it because I felt like I had to, but I don't feel like I need to anymore. So
Yeah.
kudos to her. And but to tie in everything into the Lizzo thing, I agree with every point you made. The Lizzo stuff is it's more of attention seeking type of thing than it is actual genuine body shaming. You, like you said, you can't really go out there, poke the bear, and then get mad that the bear is getting
Yeah.
at you,
Right.
because she's literally, whatever Lizzo's wearing, she's wearing stuff that the guys that like seeing women dressed like that don't want to see women like her dressed like that.
Right. Correct.
And that's what she's missing. So when she starts
Yes.
dressing like that,
Yeah.
the guys that are looking for that are going, "What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
It's not for you to look like this."
Yes.
There's a time and I guess her thing is breaking down those barriers and breaking down Lizzo, breaking down those barriers, breaking down those walls of health.
Right. She can keep on trying to break them down. They ain't gonna come down. This ain't the Berlin Wall. This ain't the Berlin Wall. Them walls ain't coming down. Those walls are
Of
not coming
health.
down.
Yeah, she's trying to break the walls of health because
And
her whole thing
that's what makes it so annoying. Is the fact that
is.
she's trying to force her ideology. And those walls are not coming down.
No, that's
It's
hilarious.
it's just it's just like it's aggravating. Like go
No,
away.
no,
Seriously, just go
I,
away.
to, I totally get it, and but she's a troll, and she's a troll in the days of the best stars right now, the best young stars right now are just absolute narcs. And so for Lizzo to be saying the stuff that she's saying and behaving the way that she does, it's quintessential, honestly,
Yeah.
for today's modern celebrities. And so Lizzo just plays that role of trolling people. But like I was saying, I feel like she's trying to break down those barriers of what people find universally attractive. And my thing is, you're not gonna win that battle playing like that. And she's playing the wrong way. She was a little bit more elegant with it, maybe, but she's playing about this the wrong way, and she's barking up a tree that I don't think she's ever gonna win. So, but to each his own. BBW thing is a real thing. People like them some big women nowadays. So it's only a matter of time that Lizzo will be seen as a trailblazer for other women who want to push the boundaries of health.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just um it's, you cannot force someone to change their preferences.
No.
You can't force people. So if okay, so let's make it simple. If Lizzo desires to be viewed, like, this is just ridiculous. So like, if Lizzo wants the same guys, let's say the same guys who find, I mean, I don't know, name somebody. I don't know who's high on the. Okay, so like Megan Good, right? Let's if Lizzo's desire is for her to live in a world in which she is perceived to be just as physically attractive as Megan Good, and the men who desire Megan Good find Lizzo to be equally as desirable, what do you think is going to happen first? Are you going to change those guys' preferences? Or are you going to have to make yourself look at least a little closer to what the Megan Good mold is, if that's what your goal is? That's the first thing. So, like, my whole thing with conversations like this is it's all about practicality. Like, you can't approach it in the way that you approach it, but expect the results that you want. And then when you don't get the results, you engage in victimhood. Like, okay, so even if you don't go ham and insane and you're in the gym 5 days a week and you go down to weighing 115, you still can't be what you are now and think that that's something that's in your foreseeable future. And another thing that I'll say, because we don't even got to spend that much time on this, is I don't evaluate cultural trends based upon those trends in a vacuum. So I don't look at body shaming and say, oh, that's body shaming and this is body shaming and blah, blah, blah. I evaluate those kinds of things juxtaposed to people's behavior. That's how I look at these types of things. So in other words, so Monique, remember Monique, the comedian Monique, she was overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And Monique is still like a more heavy set woman. But in Monique's heavy setness, she embraced more of a healthier lifestyle eating wise as she got into the gym and she got a trainer and she lost weight. Is Monique Megan Good? No, Monique is not Megan Good. But Monique still maximized her output as much as she possibly could. Furthermore, Monique was not going to the BET Awards wearing see-through dresses where you can see everything. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. There's a distinction there that I think people like Lizzo don't understand. Lizzo, in her mind, believes that people should perceive her level of physical attractiveness to be the same as Megan Good's or Cardi B's or Brittany Renner's or Lori Harvey or any of these other women who get sort of the cachet of being on that level of physical attractiveness that Lizzo is currently seeking. Mm-hmm. And the thing about that is you're just going to have to learn how to play in your own sandbox. And if you want to go play in other sandboxes, you're going to have to capitulate to the rules of those alternative sandboxes. And so it's just learning how to live within the practical world. People do not do a good enough job these days. And I think it's that narcissism factor that you alluded to previously, where everyone has the ability to control their funnel of instant gratification. So they can create these delusions of grandeur where in their mind, they can impress their worldview upon the rest of the outside world. And things just don't work that way. That is not practical. It's not realistic. Despite whatever treatment you might get on the internet and social media, that's not reality. That is the multiverse. That's not real. Okay, so you're going to have to learn how to live in the real universe or just be content with the fact that people are going to critique you for trying to impress your universe upon the rest of the world.
Agree.
You know,
But I'll just say this: the internet and social media promotes people with delusions of grandeur.
sure,
So it absolutely promotes them. Uh, there are talented people out there that rise to the top per usual, but social media actually incentivizes narcissists and people with that type of blood going because they don't see anything but the next click, the next like, the next whatever. And
mhm,
those types of people are willing to do or say whatever. On top of that, they really think they're the shit. They
yeah,
really don't think their shit stinks at all. And those type of people who come out with that type of energy, they get fans.
yeah,
And people buy into that because they're so fearless and they're
mhm.
saying the things that other people are afraid to say. No, they're saying things that people know not to say.
Because they're not true, or they're not
Exactly.
real, or they're not
Or
valid.
or they're not delusional.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And then so, oh yeah, she's saying, nah, she's just saying crazy people stuff. So, Lizzo, uh, I find her trolling entertaining. I don't really find her entertaining. I find her once I hear her a story of her, I go, haha, that's funny. It's a funny joke.
yeah,
But the sad part about it, it's her reality.
yeah.
It's her
It
reality.
is. Yeah. I think Lizzo would have a fantastic career as a comedian. She should be
Yeah,
like
I
she'd
think
be a
she'll do
great
good.
comedian.
Yeah, I think she'll do good.
But trying to be a R&B pop sex symbol is that's not her lane. It's just not her lane. It's not. Despite how much she might try to recreate the world in her image, it's just not her lane.
Mhm.
But either way, be that as it may, clear distinction between fake body shaming and real body shaming. That's kind of foul what Daily Mail did with Bridget Fonda because she's just minding her own business. She ain't out here trying to be some kind of sex pot. She ain't like, she ain't acting like Madonna.
Exactly.
60 something years old, trying to, she thinks she's still Beyonce or something like that.
Hmm.
And even then, I mean, as much as you might want to critique, Madonna for what she does, she's still not pushing the envelope the way Lizzo's trying to push it. Like, I don't know. Either way, all of it to me is kind of foul, but it is what it is. This is the world that we live in.
Hmm.
Um, so we'll go ahead and move on. Next up, we're gonna get into Kwame Brown. So Kwame Brown is making a name for himself nowadays as a content creator. Uh, I didn't know Kwame Brown had this much personality. He kind of seemed like a soft-spoken, mild-mannered guy while he was an NBA player. And now in his post-NBA career, I forget what year I don't even know if he's officially retired.
He is.
He's been out of the league for many years, but I don't know if he's officially retired. Like Jalen Rose ain't played a game in a hot minute. He's not officially retired.
So he's still on
So
the free agency list.
I guess like I don't know what the benefit of doing that is, but I'm not sure if Kwame Brown is officially retired, but he's clearly not an active player, nor will he ever be. But now in his post-playing career, he has made a name for himself as a content creator. And he, on his platform, had something to say in regards to Dwayne Wade's son. So I'm not going to get into the backstory of Dwayne Wade's son. Dwayne Wade has a transgender son. And so, Dwayne Wade and that entire family is being viewed, to use your word, as a trailblazer for this current social justice climate of like transgender acceptance, I guess would be a good way to put it. And so we recently acknowledged the 2-year anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death. Kobe died January 26, 2020 in a helicopter crash. So on that day, everybody was giving their tributes in remembrance of Kobe and his daughter Gianna, both of them passed in the helicopter crash. Dwayne Wade's son, I'm going to refer to him as a son because he was born a man. If you're offended by that, go ahead and click off the channel. I don't care. But his son put out a post acknowledging acknowledging Kobe's memory, and he did so wearing a Kobe Bryant jersey that was fastened into a dress because he believes himself to be a woman. He's transgender, all of that good stuff. So he's wearing a dress. Kwame Brown has some thoughts on that. So we are going to play what Kwame Brown had to say in regards to Dwayne Wade and by extension, his son, Zion. Zion was his birth name, but he thinks he's a woman, so the boy is now going by Zaire Wade. I think that's how it goes.
Zaya, I don't know what's
Zaya, something like that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Check it out.
But we'll go ahead and play it, and then we'll talk about what Kwame Brown had to say once we're done playing that.
To Dwayne Wade and what he's allowing to happen in his household. And I don't like to speak about a man's child, so I'm going to speak about the man. And as a man, I don't think Dwayne Wade levels up as a man anymore. And that's just my opinion, brother Dwayne Wade. I don't think you level up as a man. You are letting your woman control your house. You played this thing called basketball. This is a game. Kobe Bryant's children are not honoring him by wearing a dress. Kobe Bryant's wife is not honoring him by wearing a dress. I don't think nobody else is honoring Kobe Bryant by wearing a dress. Kobe Bryant was a masculine man who, when on my shoulder, Kobe Bryant said, I don't give a damn, shoot it with your left hand, will it in. This man's mindset was golden. This man's mindset was, I can do anything. And guess where he came from, brother Dwayne? Out of high school. Kobe Bryant, there's not a one thing, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant and his daughter. But I understand the mindset that he probably was giving his children. Do you know how great his oldest daughter mentality probably was having a daddy like Kobe Bryant? That the time that you want to give up, the time that you shoulder, the time that it's just, he gonna come to you and say, hey, that. The other shoulder work. That old school ancestral nature that Kobe Bryant had. People don't like to talk about that. They want to call him a mamba. But no, that was his ancestors. Kobe Bryant didn't give up on shit. And some people got rubbed the wrong way by that. Hell, even me at times. But how do you now honor a man with so much masculinity, so much since a teenager, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me? Because that's some of the personal conversations that me and Kobe had. Through Christ, he believed he could do anything. Now, how does that tie in with a teenage kid who feels like he's a woman now? How did that tie in with him putting this man's jersey into a mucking dress? Black people, if you don't wake up, that's only doing this to black people. Look at how they honor a black heterosexual man. You mean to tell me they would allow you to have a homosexual person honor Elvis like this? Oh, no. And I'm not saying there's anything against homosexuals, but this man is a heterosexual man. Why is he being honored by being made his jersey into a dress? Wear his goddamn jersey for the day to honor him then, without the dress part. Dwayne Wade, if you respect Kobe like you said you did, you would have had your son. We understand your son is gay. That's fine. But for that day to honor Kobe, why couldn't he just wear the goddamn jersey without turning it into a dress? This don't make no sense. The brainwashing that's going on in our community. But let me get off this. I thought this was very disrespectful. Dwayne Wade is a hetero Not Dwayne Wade. Well, Dwayne Wade is heterosexual as well, with a wife. Kobe Bryant is a heterosexual, masculine man who passed away in a tragic event along with his daughter. Let's please not show our black brother in this light. This is no offense to nobody else. This man was a heterosexual man with a wife and a family. There's no reason for this to be tied to Kobe Bryant. None whatsoever. So I wish you guys would stop disrespecting a heterosexual man.
All right. All right. Okay, so that was what Kwame Brown had to say about that. What are your initial reactions to Kwame Brown's thoughts on that?
He's gonna get in a lot of trouble. If he's not canceled now, he'll be canceled later. These are the first types of thoughts that are coming to my head. More or less, I really don't know how to. I know where he's getting at. But he's trying to blame it. He's trying to blame it on how to honor Kobe. He's trying to do that. He's using that as some type of thing, but his main issue and his main problem to me is the boy wearing a dress. And so he has a problem with transgender stuff. So that's why he has a problem with. I think he does think it's genuinely disrespectful to Kobe, and I think he thinks it's genuinely disrespectful because he doesn't subscribe to anything transgender people do.
Yeah, I think he's making the assertion that it isn't about the dress per se. It's about the subject of the honor. So I think his point is that if they were trying to honor Little Richard, for example, and Wade's son wanted to put on some kind of Little Richard outfit but make it into a dress, that would be okay because Little Richard was sort of, he was on the spectrum. He was gay. In the case of Little Richard, he was gay. So I guess he's suggesting that would, that's the distinction there. That's why he draws ire. I think that's what he means by that.
Yeah, but that's the part where it's like, I think to me his problem is genuinely the transgender thing. So he just doesn't like transgender stuff, and he doesn't like it in the mainstream. And he had to find an angle in order to make it sound like he's not just targeting transgender activity and behavior. And so to me, it didn't sound completely authentic. It just sounded like he was trying to find an angle to. I mean, this is pretty big. So and so he had to find an angle to say something, but not get himself all the way canceled. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what
I won't totally disagree with you, but I'll honestly say that I do see some merit in what he was saying. And the reason why is because, so you and I have talked in the past about how people take seminal events in society and use them as leverage and use those events as leverage to sort of propagate their own ideology. So I think there's a little bit of that was going on here. I think that I believe that collectively, I don't know how much involved, and I don't know who's doing what over there. I'm not in the Wade household, so I don't know anything. But whomever was involved in doing that, it looks to me as though they saw the anniversary of Kobe Bryant's death as an opportunity to leverage something to prop up transgender pride. That's what I saw when I saw his son, Dwayne Wade's son's post. Because if it was more about, and it's from that particular angle specifically that I will somewhat side with Kwame Brown, because I think that if this was all about Kobe and just honoring Kobe and his greatness and his memory, it's about him. So you would wear his jersey. So to not wear his jersey and to wear a dress shifts the attention off of his memory and puts it onto you because of what you're wearing in the post. I don't know if that was the overall point. And you know, the thing is, like, I will agree with you that I get the sense that no matter what the circumstance is, Kwame Brown in all likelihood has an issue with, you know, transgender identity. He probably does. And so this was a perfect conduit for him to sort of passively address some of his issues with it, because he didn't do it directly. It wasn't overt. But nevertheless, his points were not completely without merit, because I do believe that on a certain level, you are leveraging Kobe Bryant's memory in order to draw attention to yourself as someone who is embracing their transgender identity. And so, you know, from that standpoint, I'm not totally in disagreement with Kwame Brown. We have seen several instances in the past. We talked about red pills, the red pill mentality, Black Lives Matter, and all of this kind of, racial, all of this kind of stuff, where you have a general idea, but you have people who have their own ideology. And so what they like to do is they like to take these general ideas and leverage them to infuse their own ideology into the atmosphere. And so the general idea in this particular instance is, hey man, we're talking about Kobe here. Whatever, Mamba mentality, championships, winning, being a great player, being a father, being a family man, whatever angle you want to sort of attribute your honoring of him to, it still goes back to him. He's the one that died, him and his daughter, they're the ones that died. So all of this is about their memory. But when you put that post out there, people are talking more about what you're wearing and less about Kobe. So I don't really think that he's totally wrong. Now, what I will say is interesting is, the angle that he brought up with the whole notion that you don't really see this outside of Black people. That is something that I think warrants further analysis, because I think that might be something that is not false. I don't necessarily know that I see things like this going on with non-Black people, where you will have, he brought up the Elvis example, he attributed to a form of brainwashing. I do think that there is a further conversation to be had for the notion that one of the ways that you can continue to keep a group of people disenfranchised is by inundating them with media messages that, foster a mentality of diminutiveness. And one aspect of diminutiveness, in my opinion, is subduing masculinity and embracing non-masculinity. I'll put it that way. And I'm not somebody who's trying to say all masculine all the time and all of this other kind of stuff. I'm proudly masculine. I think that there is something to be said for masculinity. There's a place for it. So you'll never get me to apologize for being masculine or for other people to be masculine. But I just don't see this happening in other aspects of culture and society in which it isn't primarily Black people who are operating in that particular space or that lane. I kind of think that there's some merit to the notion that if we're talking about Elton John or, not Richard Simmons, I forget that he was that exercise fitness guy. His last name is Simmons, but he was
Richard Simmons?
Huh?
That's Richard Simmons.
Because his name is Richard Simmons. Because you know you got Def Jam Richard Simmons, and then there's are both of them named Richard Simmons?
Shit.
Yeah, I know both. I know both of them. The last name is Simmons, but I forget that guy's first name. But there's that guy, you know. And
yes, it's Richard Simmons.
Okay. So they're Richard Simmons, yeah, and then so him and people like Elton John, like you know, those guys are gay. They're flamboyantly gay, but they're not cross-dressing. They're not wearing dresses or things like that. When those guys pass along, I don't know if you'll see tributes on social media with transgender white people wearing dresses instead of their usual male-oriented attire. So, you know, I will agree with you that I think that there is a tint of bias against transgender identity inherent in Kwame Brown's message. But I also think that there is some merit to what he is talking about when he is talking about appropriate tribute to a particular person and what that all looks like, what it all means, and how you're trying to draw attention to yourself. I do think that there is an aspect of, you know, in this particular example, there, you know, Zaya Wade trying to co-opt Kobe Bryant's memory with transgender identity. That, in my opinion, is in poor taste. Because if it is all about Kobe, I agree with Kwame Brown. Wear his jersey, represent Kobe Bryant in the manner in which Kobe Bryant lived, instead of trying to recreate this situation as an opportunity to prop up transgender identity.
Yeah, and I get that. I just think it's just rough nowadays. I hear that angle. I hear what Kwame's saying. It's just and he's entitled to that. But right now, man, we're dealing with the amount of people that represent that community, whether it's you know, overt or in the shadows, for the people that actually support that community. It's a ton of people. And so what Kwame, he has, the thing is, okay, so I used to sag my pants, you know, newsflash. Right. I used to sag my pants. I used to wear 5X t-shirts.
Yeah.
And I did everything the TV told me to do, basically, when I was a kid, more or less. And so for these kids nowadays, for Wade's kids generation, they are being infiltrated with different forms of social engineering. And so, and I know we're not shaming the kid, because we're not. I mean, this is more or less a parenting thing, right, and a situation of dealing with Wade, because that's what Kwame did too. He was addressing Wade. Mm-hmm. And so, so this is a thing where, you know, as a parent, and, you know, you are out here, you know, raising your kid, trying to protect your kid too from, you know, bullying the world and stuff like that. But you keep putting your child on Front Street, and you keep putting your child out there in crosshairs. And I don't know how they didn't think that this was going to get a lot of attention. It's already a lot of attention already that Wade's son is now a daughter. That's already a big thing. And now that you got Kobe's jersey, because the kid doesn't even know who Kobe is.
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah.
And that's also the part too, where it's just like, all right, the kid doesn't know who Kobe is. So the kid is not even coming from a place of genuinely honoring Kobe Bryant. This is more of a, no, I want to honor Kobe. And I turn everything into dresses. And so it's a thing where, from that angle, I get that angle. But from Wade as the parent, the guardian, and all this other stuff, there's just a level of exploitation going on here that I'm not fond of. So I feel like they're trying to make a brand for this kid, and, you know, so that he can have a life and a career outside of them. So it looks like this is part of his campaign that they're working on. So about time he's of legal age, he'll be a name in the streets of, hey man, this is Wade's daughter's son. And so everybody is going to be lit too, because by then there's going to be so many daughter sons and son daughters
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah, I think
who
that's the
knows,
key. Yeah.
right? And so right now we're the old heads. We're the old heads. There's still going to be people out there that are part of his generation that doesn't think like that. But for the most part, we're thinking very old, and we're thinking past tense, because the social engineering is in full swing.
Yeah.
And when the social engineering gets at a level where it's self-perpetuating, like this situation, then it's just like, hey man, I don't know when it's going to stop.
Sure.
So I kind of get into this space where it just is what it is. If that's how, and I know, I'm pretty sure, it's all good, but if that's how they want to honor Kobe and represent Kobe, because why not? I mean, I'm pretty sure in the history of Kobe playing basketball that there was a guy that was acting like a groupie towards Kobe. And he wasn't acting like a man groupie. He was acting like a groupie because he wanted some Kobe love. And so that guy may have wore a Kobe dress to the game, not like that literally, but you get what I'm saying. There's all kinds. So Kobe has fans in all walks of life. They represent. There's all kinds of ways to represent your pride and your love for Kobe if you are from all kinds of walks of life. So there are transgender people who are Kobe fans, and if they're transgender like any other modern transgender nowadays, they're over the top and flamboyant, and they can't just do regular 1 to 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got to go 1, 10, 15, 7. They got to just jump and be extra and eccentric. So once I saw this was extra and eccentric. This was right up the alley. I wasn't surprised. This just seems like typical behavior. And so to me, it's a degree of trollishness, but also authenticness, because that's how they genuinely feel. So there's a level of trollishness from, oh, you don't like this, how I take this. And there's also a level of, hey, we really feel this way because we're really flamboyant. So there's two sides to this that are going on. So from my side of the fence, in order to prevent myself from being so invested, because I used to be, but this has gone way beyond my control, and this is above my pay grade. So at this point, whenever this type of stuff is going on, I write it off. And I go, hey man, this is the world now. Hey, they got me with sagging my pants. They got me with the 5X shirts. They got me with all the hip hop goals in their mouth and all that other wild stuff. So for these kids growing up with pants that are way too tight, dresses and all this other stuff, purses and whatnot, hey man, they're just being the new fly people of their era and their age. So I just go, hey man, it's just social engineering, and it's beyond me, man.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I would offer up that the form of social engineering that we were exposed to, the parameters are a bit different than the social engineering going on today. I don't think they're completely comparable. Like I don't like at the end of the day, because I did the same thing. I never really did the pants sagging thing too heavy, but yeah, I was wearing jeans waist size 36, shirts 2X, 3X. That was the norm. That was standard issue. But that wasn't a social conditioning that reinforced this notion of I think therefore I am.
That's true.
That wasn't a form of social conditioning that was basically telling me, hey, if you want to be a horse, be a horse. Or if you want to be, even though you were born a man, if you want to be a woman, hey, go for it. So I think there's a different. I think the form of social conditioning now is even more pervasive. It's not comparable. It's different.
That's fair.
Now, here's what I will say. I want to say one last thing about the social engineering point, because I think that that's the crux of this whole issue. So social engineering is only as such, like social engineering is only the powerful force that it is when you don't have other influences who are directly a part of your life on a day-to-day basis, who can teach you how to effectively navigate said social engineering to the point where you don't allow that to envelop you and you still retain the ability to reasonably formulate your own identity. And so that boils down to your immediate environment and your conditioning when you're young, during child rearing, right? And so what I think is unfortunate nowadays is we are now living in a culture that discourages people from being stern parents who enforce rigid notions of personal identity. Like we live in a culture that discourages that. So, in other words, I'm not a father, I don't have kids, but God willing, when I do eventually have children, my decision to raise my son, who was born a man, to be a masculine man and to condition him in that way, and my decision to condition my daughter to be a feminine woman would be perceived as a bad thing. I'm not supposed to be doing that as a parent. I would be dissuaded from raising my children to be that way.
I agree.
So in the mainstream media, obviously, clearly in the weirdo world of social media, I am a rigid, intolerant bigot of a parent because I am choosing to socially condition my son to be a masculine man. I'm not supposed to do that.
In the academic community too.
Right. So that to me is a problem. So the fact that we are dissuading people from rearing their children in accordance with these roles that have existed since the beginning of time and never showed any signs of not working, to me is a problem. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I believe that under every single circumstance, it should be completely binary and A and B at all times. But I think that my role as a parent should be to use your word, insulate and protect my child and raise them in an environment in which they are strong and confident enough to formulate their own identity, as opposed to just whimsically leaving them out there into the world where they could just sort of figure it out for themselves. And, who knows what you're getting at that point. And so, that's the only thing about this social conditioning thing that warrants further discussion because, and I'm seeing this going on. Like, it's unfortunate that we're basically creating this environment in which people are being literally dissuaded from sort of rearing their kids in an environment that entails certain social norms and customs. Like, that shouldn't be something that we're saying, hey, you're not supposed to do that with your kids. Like,
well, honestly, and just to tie in, I mean to interrupt, but even when we were coming up, when we were in elementary school, that's when they started introducing concepts of not beating your kids, and I get that.
Right.
That's when those concepts became a thing where it's like, don't beat your kids, don't do this, don't do that. And honestly, bro,
that was the precursor to it.
Yeah, and that's when things started. Then they also started with our generation too of, hey, why do you have to wear this? Because it's blue. Yeah. Boys don't have to wear blue. Oh, what? We don't? Yeah, boys can wear any colors they want. And it's just like, oh yeah, they started introducing those things to our generation when we were in school. And so more or less, our generation are parents now. They are the new parents. They're the whatever. And once they were getting those levels of indoctrination, don't let them, people from our generation that went to college and educated, Because now at that point, when they were in college, they were hearing another level of indoctrination, another level of this progressionism. That's like, oh no, you got to be this, you got to do that, no, you can't do that to your kid. What you mean you can't do that? And then it's like, all right, hey, no, don't discipline the kid for this. Don't discipline the kid for that.
Yeah.
Don't discipline. Then there's just this kid that's just out here.
Yeah.
And when you have a child that's out here that has no real guidance, at that point, this kid doesn't have guidance. He doesn't have any structure. So of course that child is getting into anything. And so they're getting into any lifestyle. They're getting into any type of whatever you name, because at what point did they learn boundaries? At what point did they learn to respect authority? At what point did they learn to have some type of, like I said, self-discipline? And so with none of those things installed as a child, they grow up as these adults who are entitled, who are always victims because they never learned a lesson before. So they're always the victim to stuff. And then it's all the stuff that's going on now, honestly. And it's going on now because parents have been taught not to parent anymore.
Yes.
And it's getting worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So I agree, bro.
Yeah, and that to me is why a lot of this is so pervasive. And so I agree that was the precursor to a lot of this, right? So what started with you can't spank or beat no more, that sort of proceeded, that evolved into these notions of not adhering to gender roles when it comes to what kind of clothes you wear or what colors you like. Yeah, absolutely. But technology has sort of sped up the wheel.
Yes.
So whereas in previous generations, it was always a slow burn. Now, because everyone has their own platform that they can use as a bully pulpit to say, think the way I think or else. Now we're in this culture where it's like, if you can't keep up with the speed of sound, you're gonna get left behind. And in lieu of getting left behind, we're gonna call you we're gonna denigrate your character in response to you being sort of left behind. Seriously, it's crazy. But I'm fairly certain, speaking of Kobe Bryant, if it became public knowledge, some of the ways that Kobe Bryant raised his daughters, he'd probably get destroyed.
I'm sure.
And it's just unfortunate. It's like I said before, I don't like, and this, I'm not trying to make it a political conversation, but when you get a person like Gina Carano, and I keep pointing back to this because to me, it was a perfect example of this playing out in real time. When you get a person like Gina Carano who says, being a conservative in today's society is like being a persecuted Jew during the Holocaust. People got all up in arms because she was using an analogy of a persecuted Jewish person during the Holocaust to equate what it's like to be conservative nowadays. And it's like, okay, you're getting mad because of the analogy that she used. But let's talk about the point she was trying to make. The point that she was trying to make was, it's no longer okay to be a conservative person or to sort of cling to socially conservative values, because it must mean that you're intolerant or a bigot or just rigid, and it must mean that you're not doing it right, because you're supposed to be someone who's just okay with everything. And you're supposed to be okay with social anarchy. You're supposed to be okay with no rules. You're supposed to be okay with your son wanting to be a woman. You're supposed to be okay with your son wanting to wear dresses, because you're supposed to love them for that, embrace them for that. And if you don't, you're the one who's being the bad parent, as opposed to being. And so I'm not supposed to, as a parent, rear my son in such a way where he says, I'm going to wear man's clothes. I'm not wearing a dress. I'm going to identify in the masculine sense, not in the feminine sense. That now in 2022 means I am being a bad parent. And like you said, there's no signs of it slowing down. It's only getting worse. And, when we started to accept this general idea that boundaries and impressing boundaries upon children is a bad thing, things really started going all the way left. But like I said, man, I'm choosing to opt myself out of analyzing whether Kwame Brown has a problem with transgender people or not. And I'm choosing to focus on, you know, the fact that I believe that he is correct in when he speaks to this idea that you are taking a seminal moment and using it as leverage to co-opt your agenda. There is a point to that, in my opinion, and I'm not necessarily 100% in favor with this whole idea of raising your kids to embrace this notion of I think, therefore I am. So
it's dangerous, man.
Yeah, it is.
You just don't know. You just don't know where it ends. And
Yeah.
so this was the first generation of kids inspired to do such things. So it'll be interesting to see what this looks like as far as the long term effects of such ideology. But this was not a thing before. It is now. So it'll be interesting to see what future generations look like after this. But yeah, I agree. That is a difference. We didn't have the I think, therefore I am type of stuff. Yeah. We just had trends, and the trends got me. I think therefore I am is a trend, but that's a much different trend, and I do agree that's a different type of a curveball. Like we had a curveball, a breaking ball, whatever. That's a knuckler, and that one's all over the plate. And then it finally lands. So I don't know how it's going to look, but it'll be interesting down the line for sure.
It is going to be interesting. I'm just trying to go ahead and find my wife so that I can have my kids and do what I want before things get so far out of hand. Because I think about this, like what? Because, one has to assume that these younger people who are growing up with this craziness, are they going to have children of their own? And clearly there's going to be an evolution of even where we are now. There's going to be an evolution of that. So what's the next level of that? It's crazy. Like I have a 10-year-old nephew or 11. How old is he? 10, 11, something like that. He's living in this crazy world. And, thank God for my brother and my sister-in-law, because they're not on that weirdo stuff. They're doing it the way that makes sense to me, in my opinion. And so, that's sort of the last bastion of hope right there. Because otherwise, I don't know what this is going to look like. You know what I'm saying? I really don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. It is. It's going to be crazy though.
Yeah.
Because these kids are growing up, and it's going to be a reasonable expectation. Like, even if I am a man, it's going to be perfectly reasonable. I might marry a transgender, or I might marry whatever, and raise a family like that. And that's just the world that's where things are coming to. And whatever your opinion on that is, it is what it is. We can all respect each other, but the world is changing right before our very eyes. And I get the sense that it's going to get to a tipping point in which we're going to regret being so embracing of all of this newness. And we're not going to understand, we're not going to realize how much we wish it wasn't like that until it's too late.
I agree. And I'll just say this, man, for anybody out there that's really struggling with this concept. Like women are a pain in the ass. I agree that. I agree with that. But vaginas the best. So if you're struggling with that concept, I don't know how to help you with other things in life. Because if you've experienced that and you don't like it, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, man. So have fun doing whatever you're doing, but you're missing out. I'll just say that.
We'll leave it at that, man. we'll just leave it at that. We could beat that dead horse for hours. Like, seriously,
man, bro.
But okay, so we'll move on to the last story. This literally broke tonight before we came on to do the stream. We thought we'd fit it in. So we are both from Miami, Florida. We were very happy with the direction that the Dolphins were going in under the stewardship of Brian Flores. Even though the team started out rough, I think they started out 1-7 or 0-7 or something like that. I think it was I think they started off 1-7, right? So that's 8 games. And then they won 9 in a row or 8 in a row or something like that.
They won
the season.
Yeah, they won like 8.
Yeah, because it's 17 games. So, the Dolphins ended up firing him. And this evening, he filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL under the grounds of the NFL and its racist hiring practices. So this is obviously going to be a hot topic in the world of sports and probably culture in general for the rest of the week. So I wanted to talk about it because it's interesting. It gives us sports is probably one of the best ways today to be able to get a glimpse of how regular society works. If you want to understand how the world behaves and operates, sports is a good lens through which to sort of observe that. And you can sort of pierce the veil and sort of understand how various aspects of modern society behave based upon one's observation of sports. And this is one of those observations. So Brian Flores is basically filing a lawsuit against the NFL on the grounds that it is actively engaging in racist hiring practices when it comes to head coaches. If you look at the numbers, it is easy to buy into the idea that the NFL is doing this purposefully, because if you have 32 teams and only one black head coach, 70% of the players are black, it stands to reason that there's something a bit off by that. Now, whether you want to believe that the NFL is actively engaging in racist hiring practices, we can disagree or agree on that all day long, but you cannot deny that there is a disparity when you talk about only one guy having one of these positions out of 32. I believe there are 32 franchises. And so the idea is that Brian Flores has essentially committed career suicide. The idea is that he is Colin Kaepernick himself. He's probably not going to return. He's probably not going to have the opportunity to coach again because essentially he's engaging in a one-man crusade against the entire league, blaming the entire thing for knowingly being racist and engaging in racist hiring practices. So it's funny too because one of the catalysts for him filing this class action lawsuit was he used to be an assistant coach for the Patriots. And he got a text from Bill Belichick. All right, so he got a text message from Bill Belichick congratulating him on being hired by the Giants. And Brian Flores interviewed for the Giants. He was getting ready to interview for the Giants job. And there's another guy, and the Giants, I think a couple of days ago, hired Brian Gable to be the head coach of the Giants. So apparently Bill Belichick got his Brian's mixed up and went to texting Brian Flores, congratulating him for the job. Brian Flores obviously was confused because he's like, I haven't even interviewed for it yet. I got the interview coming up, but what do you mean? Thanks for giving me the job. And then eventually Brian Flores put two and two together and he asked Belichick, are you confusing your Brian's? This is Brian Flores. Did you mean to text Brian Gable? And Bill Belichick responded by saying, oh man, I messed this up. I meant to text Brian Gable. The Giants offered Brian Gable the job. So, it was kind of weird. It seemed a little off because even though the Giants had already found their guy and they had full intentions on hiring Brian Gable, they had still, set aside an interview for Brian Flores. So it stands to reason that interview was going to be a formality because Brian Flores had absolutely zero chance to get that job because they had already gotten Brian Gable. They had already decided on Brian Gable. So that's one of the things. And then Brian Flores talks about how black coaches are subjected to customary, status quo hires in order to fulfill the mandate of the Rooney Rule, even though they aren't realistically being considered for these positions. So, once again, this gives us the chance to understand how systemic racism actually works. So what I'll say about this, just to start off real quick, is, in my opinion, it's possible to engage in systemic racism unknowingly, number one. And then I also think that there is a difference between engaging in systemic racism and being overtly racist in your behavior. So what people generally do is they will sort of lump it all into the same boat. And what we're going to see a lot on social media for the next week or two while this is a hot topic, and what ESPN is going to talk about a lot, and what they're going to talk about a lot on these sports radio shows and on Fox, is they're basically going to be dissecting whether the NFL is racist or not. They're going to take the lazy way out. They're not going to get into the nuance. So I'm going to try and get into a little bit of the nuance just to provide some clarity on how this all works. So, you know, all you have to do is just kind of look at the numbers here. You have 32 NFL teams, 31 of them have owners. All 31 of those owners are white people. So whether you're talking about the NFL or whether you're talking about corporate America, I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care whether this is the trucking industry. I don't care whether this is the video game industry. I don't care whether this is the finance industry. I don't give a damn whether we're talking about real estate. Whatever industry you are in, whenever you have a lack of diversity at the top in terms of the people who make decisions, in terms of the people who run the organizations, their ideology is going to permeate throughout their organization. If the people who are at the top, if the people who own these organizations don't prioritize diversity in hiring, if they don't care about it, then the people who they put in positions to do the hiring are therefore not going to care about it. And so no one's going to care about it. Now, the thing about it is, and this is what makes things like the Rooney Rule to me a joke, you can institute all of the rules in the world that you want in order to try to get people to do what you think is the right thing. But one thing that you cannot do with any rule is you cannot legislate what is in somebody's heart. You cannot legislate desire. So the Rooney Rule might serve a purpose per se, but what you're not going to be able to do is get people in positions of ownership to actually care about diversity in hiring. And so if that's the thing that we're going to go on, if that's the thing that we're going to go along, how do you get people to care? And you can't. The answer is you can't get people to care. What's the solution? Obviously, the solution is having more Black people who are owners of NFL franchises. However, that's not possible either. At least I don't think that's possible, because the way that the NFL works is the owners have to collectively agree to allow an ownership group to purchase a franchise. So if you get outvoted, if you're a minority group or an outright minority owner like Michael Jordan, for example, you can be outvoted from having the opportunity to purchase an NFL franchise. They can just say, we don't want you in here. So essentially the owners wield too much power. And on top of them wielding too much power, intrinsically, they do not care about hiring more Black people as coaches. They truly believe, when they are going about the business of running their team, that they are hiring the people that they feel is best for the job. That is what they believe. Now, whether you agree with that or not is a separate discussion. But the reality is, in their mind, they believe that they are hiring the person who is best for the job. They are not prioritizing whether that person is Black or not. They're not prioritizing whether that person is non-white. To them, always hiring a white coach is it just so happens coincidentally that they seem to always believe that the best person for the job is a non-Black candidate. It is what it is. So I don't know if you remember when we first started doing these videos years ago, we were talking about the Kaepernick thing. And we were talking about how the NFL culture is what it is. And so if you want things to change, you're going to have to instigate that change outside of the confines of the NFL, i.e. start your own sports league. Create a situation in which you have more people who are not white, who have an opportunity to own franchises and therefore be in control of creating a culture that lends itself to prioritizing minority hires. Barring that from being a reality, barring that from taking place, what we are going to see is more of the same. Because I'll say it again, whether we're talking about pro sports, whether we're talking about Wall Street, the finance industry, the tech industry, any industry that sees ownership or presidents or CEOs be of a homogenized composition, you're going to witness hirings and firings that look the same. People just naturally cling to what they know, and they cling to familiarity. So if you have 31 people who own teams and all 31 of those people look the same, you're not going to be able to change a situation in which people are going to operate their businesses, their multi-dollar businesses, based upon a route that is sort of tied to what is familiar to them and what makes sense to them. So, to bring it back around to Brian Flores, I think this lawsuit is much ado about nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going to change anything. At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to force Jerry Jones to sell the Dallas Cowboys to a black guy. You're not going to be able to make Stephen Ross sell the Miami Dolphins to Sean P. Diddy Combs. None of this is going to happen. You're not going to tell the Maras that they have to sell the New York Giants to Jay-Z. That is not going to happen. And so all of these other symbolic gestures like this and what Kaepernick did, sure, we'll be able to rally around it as a symbolic rallying cry, like, hey, man, good for you. You fought the good fight. Is it going to serve as a change agent? Absolutely not. And all y'all people who are going to, get on your social media timelines and praise Brian Flores for being a hero and call out the NFL for being racist, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to change anything. They're still running roughshod over this situation. Until you get more non-white people in positions of ownership, nothing is going to change because they set the tone for these businesses. And they retain too much of the ability to be able to dictate who can purchase a franchise and who cannot. And that's not even to mention the fact that these franchises rarely even find themselves open for business in terms of availability of being sold in the first place. Exactly. So who cares? Like, that's how I feel about this, is who cares? For Brian Flores' sake, I hope that he is able to earn some sort of settlement money so that he can walk away with something out of this, because he'll probably never coach again, at least not at the NFL level. Maybe he'll have to go back to college. But in terms of what this means, this is dumb. This is no different than when the George Floyd thing was going on and you had all of these people crying about statues and Aunt Jemima and the Land O'Lakes Indian on the damn box of the butter. Who the hell cares about any of this symbolism? Like, until we get to the root of what actually causes these things to be an issue in the first place, all the rest of this stuff is not going to matter. Lawsuits aren't going to matter. Throwing statues down ain't going to matter. Turning Aunt Jemima into the paper mill company or whatever the hell you want to call it ain't going to make much of a difference. So, to Brian Flores, I just hope he gets some coin out of this. But that's pretty much all I had to say about that.
Yeah, and I think I just think that for this is very abrupt. I don't know who's in his camp that signed off on this. You have to have a camp at this point. If you're a Flores kind of guy, you have to have people that you talk to. Like, there had to be a thought process on this, and I would have consulted someone first. This seems very emotional, and very premature. So, bro, people interview for jobs all the time and don't get it. I feel like you're qualified. I feel like you're, Flores, one of the better free agent coaches out there. For what he did to the Dolphins was, extremely impressive. That team doesn't want to win on purpose.
Yeah.
So for him to go there and turn it into a winning team was very impressive. So I was not pleased when he was fired. I don't know why he's fired. I have my reasons. I thought it was for Tua, nothing racial. I thought it was because of Tua.
Yeah, that clearly had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and him not wanting to play Tua and him wanting to move on from that because Tua's just a backup. But it is what it is. I mean, they still wanted to make Daniel Jones work in New York. And I'm sure when Flores got there, he wouldn't want to work with Daniel. Nobody wants to work with Daniel Jones. And whoever that guy that signed up there, he's getting set up for failure too, because Daniel Jones ain't it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bro. We saw the tape on Joe Burrow. It only took 2 years. So right now, Daniel Jones out there just leading the league in turnovers every year he's out there. It's a mess. So, I was glad he didn't get the job up there. I felt like that would have been a pretty good fit. But I was glad he didn't get it because they still wanted Daniel Jones. So I thought he was just going to land somewhere else, get himself a nice gig, be a coordinator somewhere. Yeah, I thought he was going to play his cards. I thought he was just suing the Dolphins. I didn't know he was suing the NFL.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows the history of the NFL, the NFL was formulated by the mob. And it was a gambling venture that made a lot of money through Vegas. It was real WWE back in the day. It grew wings, and now we got real time athletes out there playing around. They still have their WWE moments, but for the most part, I would say it's unscripted. For the most part, you can't stop what referees do and all the other weird stuff in between. But I say all that stuff to say is that the NFL, and the NBA for that matter, but the NFL is the mob. And what they did to Kaepernick is that was collusion. Nobody wanted to hire, and that was very obvious and very apparent.
Yeah, they offed them.
Yeah. But once you look at the NFL's history and look at who launches investigations on the NFL, it's the NFL. The NFL investigates themselves. And I'm pretty sure we're going to know what their findings are going to be when they look into the Flores investigation. So for him to put himself out there in such a manner has to be a form of career suicide, like you said. And if he ever planned on having another job in the NFL, he put it in great jeopardy by doing such a thing. And so there's still a route for him in the HBCU lane. It's still a lane over there. You can say, yeah, I can coach at HBCU. HBCU would love to have Flores as a coach. It is definitely not the same type of scenario, but hell, at least you're in an environment that you don't have to worry about racism there, right? So yeah, it's wild, man. But even if he goes down to the college state, man, when you go around hollering that card, man, and then you want to sue over that card, that's pretty wild when you have to go to people that don't look like you and ask for a job.
Right.
It's just, I don't know how that pans out.
Yeah.
So, and here's my thing with the NFL or any other establishment that Black people have a problem with, because I've personally had enough of all of the whining and complaining about trying to get into institutions. Honestly, it's equally as sad as the people that were trying to do sit-ins back in the civil rights days. To me, that was a disgrace. And that's me personally. Some people can look at that as being noble and standing up for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want me to eat your pie, I'm not going to your restaurant. I'll make my own pies at my own restaurant.
Right.
And so if that was more or less the mentality, then we wouldn't be crying to eat pies that don't taste better than your pie. Why are you trying to fight to go into an establishment and eat food that don't taste better than your food? So my situation is, if you don't like what's going on in there, if you're hollering this, hollering that, well, then create your own.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to create your own, do not complain when you're in somebody else's house. You're literally in somebody else's house, complaining about what's in the refrigerator, complaining about what's over here. What's the, can I sleep in the master bedroom tonight? do you own this place? No, well, put me on the deed. Put me on the deed.
No one's going to do that. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Put me on the deed. You got all these other Black people around here working, cleaning, cutting grass, doing this. You got Mexicans over there. So, we represent 70% of your property. So we need to own the house now.
That's
what? You just work here.
That's always been the dumb. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you just work here. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to own a house, own your own house. I pay you, don't I? Whose fault is it that you don't own your own house? Don't come in my house asking to own mine. So of course Jerry Jones ain't gonna sell his house to some Negro. And so my thing is, so for black people out here that's really barking up these institutions' leg, oh, give us free, treat me equal, give me this, give me that. We're the entertainment. We represent this much of your league. Oh, you really represent that much of the league? The league wouldn't go anywhere without you? Oh, everybody pay all these top dollars for you? Then why are you still there? So my thing is, until these athletes or the coaches get it together and decide to get on and move on with themselves, then and try to create their own thing, then these things will continue to be. They'll just put some puppet dude in there that's racially ambiguous. Hey, look, we got a colored guy in here. Isn't this what you guys wanted? Now we have a colored owner. You know, oh, now we have they use the word colored too. We have a colored owner. And they're gonna say, and look, and it's a woman. It's a colored woman.
They're gonna try to kill two birds with one stone.
No, we doubled up. Are you kidding me? ESPN is just, and I don't have a problem with it. It's a whole bunch of women on ESPN. It's just women running things, women anchors, women calling the games, women this, women. I said, look, I'm here for diversity too, guys. I'm really here for diversity. I love diversity. All right, but at the same time, you can't put this much. These many new ingredients into the dish, you know. And so I'm all for eclectic flavors and all that other stuff, but once you put so many flavors in a certain pot, it starts to blend all together and there's really no flavor anymore. And so I think that's what's it's so forced. It's so forced woke. It's so forced everything. You know, I'm talking about ESPN, that it becomes difficult to watch. And it's insulting, honestly, to watch. Especially when they got all these guys, you know, drop it like it's hot. And I'm like, what are you saying, bro? And he's like, oh yeah. What these kids saying now? I don't know what these kids, what word these kids. They're saying, oh no, that's what they're pushing P. Oh yeah, and he's John Moran is out here pushing P. And it's like, don't be out here using slang terms forcefully just because, you know, whatever. And it's just so cringe. So I don't want cringe NFL owners. I don't want cringe NFL coaches that are just there for spectacle. They keep hyping up people like what's his name? The guy that was a coach, the defensive coordinator for the Bucks, that used to coach the Chargers, he was crapping all over that job. Can't forget, he blitzed every damn down. Forgot the guy's name. But the defensive coordinator for the Bucks, he was like, oh, a black dude. Oh yeah, he's a good coach. He's a good coach. And it's like, hey man, when he was coaching the Chargers, they weren't doing nothing. Flores was actually
the defensive coordinator for the Bucks was Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles. He was over the Chargers. And
he had a head coach, but he used to be the head coach of the Jets.
And the Jets.
Yeah.
And the Jets. My thing is what Bowles is. I don't know why he's so highly touted. I'm never impressed anywhere he goes. But the thing is with Flores, I was just introduced to him when he came to the Dolphins, and he extremely, very impressive, because he literally took scraps and made them into a competing team. And so I was impressed by Flores. Listen, if there's a coach in there, I don't want a token coach. I don't want an affirmative action coach. I don't want an affirmative action owner. I want somebody that really earns their merit somewhere, and they didn't get it from lawsuits or anything weird or any handouts. And so if that's the case, then the only thing that we're going to do as a people continuously for the rest of our duration is ask whoever for a seat at their table that they built and created for themselves. Hey, I know it's going to take a long time to get your own get firewood, get your own wood, get a tree, chop it down, make your own table out of it, and eat your own food that you grew in your own backyard. That's going to take a while, especially when you're used to shopping at the grocery store and never getting your own supplies. Yeah, this shit's going to suck. But at the same time, it's not going to suck as worse as getting the scraps from that table and instead having to sit outside while it's raining and always going, why can't we sit at the table? Why can't we have the warmth and the man, get over it. So I'm not saying that's what Flores is doing. I feel like Flores had the wrong people in his camp. I'm pretty sure he felt it was racially motivated from the jump. I feel like somebody should just calm them down.
Yeah, we'll see. That's the easy conclusion to make, though.
What's that? That it was racially motivated?
Yeah, and it's also very.
I don't think it was, and that's the part.
No, I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it was either. I'm saying it's very easy for him to believe it was.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's like a default position. It's like a default is that's just the world that we live in now. We live in this climate of social justice, right? So any hint of racial prejudice of any kind, you can play that card, and you'll have the media who can back you up, because the media is, the media, they got their pitchforks out, constantly hunting and looking for the racists themselves. And so not only is it easy for a person in Brian Flores' position to believe that, but I would also imagine that, like you alluded to, he has plenty of people who are around him, feeding him that. They're basically reinforcing that to him.
They have
saying, "Hey, man," and the thing about it is, like, and a lot of people don't want to hear this. Well, a lot of Black people don't want to hear this. Well, I won't even say Black people. I think the media and Black people as well don't want to hear this. But all you have to do is just look at the numbers. Like, comparatively speaking, and I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, but statistically, how many white people are in coaching positions juxtaposed to Black people? So from a sheer number standpoint, you're going to have way more white people getting these opportunities because there's more of them who are trying to get a bite at the apple. If you have, and I'm throwing random numbers out there, I don't know the actual numbers, but if you have 50 white guys and 3 Black guys all trying to get the same job, from a statistical standpoint, it is highly improbable that one of those Black guys are going to get that job, just based on sheer statistics. So if you extrapolate that to the history of coaching and just the sport of football in this country, period, Black people just have some catching up to do. And like, you had white guys who have been coaching since like the 50s and the 60s. There were no Black coaches. There were no Black offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, let alone head coaches, coaching way back then. So this is a legacy type deal where it's going to take several generations before you start seeing some of the quote unquote equality that you're looking for. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that 70% of the league is Black. It does that's irrelevant. There's always a higher number of labor compared to management in any industry. It doesn't matter what job. It doesn't matter. Walk into a Walmart. What is there more of? Hourly employees or salaried management? There's way more employees than management. So just based off the numbers alone, it does not matter that 70% of the players are Black and so there should be more Black guys who are coaching. Some of those guys retire and don't get into coaching. Some of them retire and do get into coaching and flame out because they suck. Some of them, retire and get into coaching and they're good. Some of them retire and they get into broadcasting. There's a diaspora of other avenues that these guys get into post playing. It's not like you're dealing with 70% Black players and all 70% of them retire and are trying to be coaches. Right. That's not what's happening. Like, these guys are retiring and they're doing all different sorts of things. But what annoys me is when you get these anecdotes thrown around in the media all day. 70% of the players are Black, so why aren't there more coaches? It's just it's taking the lazy way and the non-nuanced approach to analyzing what's going on. The fact of the matter is, it's just going to take several generations for us to catch up. It's no different than wealth. If from 1607 all the way up until 1864, Black people were not allowed to legally own land, and land was the primary source of wealth in this country. Those 280 years where Black people were legally not allowed to own land, that's going to matter when it comes to how much longer it's going to take for Black people to catch up in the accumulation of wealth. Because for 280 some years, white people could own land, and they had a monopoly on land ownership. Thus, they had a monopoly on the owner. Thus, they had a monopoly on the acquisition of wealth. And so it takes several generations before you start to see wealthy Black people pop up. But it's literally a matter of a race to catch up. And I'm not happy to say that that's the reality, but this is the history that it is. Unless we're going to get into a time machine, go back and change history, this is what it is. So it isn't as simple as saying there's just overt collusion at every turn and Black people are being left out. Sometimes it's literally a matter of maybe they weren't qualified, number one. Number two, from a statistical standpoint, they're just, the sheer numbers would suggest that those opportunities are just far and few between for people who are not white. And then when you couple that with some of the systemic things that are in play, like everybody who runs these organizations happen to be white. And so you're going to deal with things like nepotism. You're going to deal with things like familiarity. These things are in play. When you combine all of that, it isn't as simple as stating just outright, oh, well, they're actively engaging in racism and not trying to, and are purposely trying to not hire Black people. Is there an element that's taking place? Perhaps, but it's to a small degree, in my opinion. Really what's going on is this is the price of doing business. If over in if we lived on an island where all the businesses are owned by Black people, and you had white people who were the minority living on that island, and they were trying to get their foot in the door and get jobs and things like that, statistically, they would be hard pressed to find the same opportunities available to them that are available to Black people, because the people who are in positions of ownership happen to be Black. And so things like nepotism and familiarity naturally come into play. This is what human nature is. It's a part of the machine. It just is what it is. But when you got a guy like Pete Carroll, who's been coaching in football since the 60s, what do you think is going to happen? Like, it's going to take those types of generations to pass along where you have more Black people rooted in coaching for you to start seeing actual optically more people who aren't necessarily white in these positions of influence. Like, it's just going to take time, but oftentimes we don't want to have the nuanced discussions. We just want to have the easy conversations, which is, where is the social justice? Where is the equity? Where is the fairness? And I keep trying to tell people fair doesn't exist. It is a notion that was made up. It doesn't exist. It's not real. You earn what you work for. And there's no such thing as fair. If there was a such thing as fair, then there would be 16 Black coaches and 15 white coaches and vice versa. That would be fair. And we don't live in a world of fair. We live in a world of you get what you earn. And the passage of time and just things taking place in the practical world. This is just another example of that.
Yeah, and I just feel like Flores was, to me, being that guy breaking down barriers. Tomlin has been doing a phenomenal job in Pittsburgh. They don't play an exciting form of football, but they win every damn year, and they're always in playoff contention. And so it'll be interesting to see how he coaches without Roethlisberger. He did seem a little bit lost without him, but Mason Rudolph's not an answer either.
No, absolutely.
But it'll still be interesting to see how Tomlin coaches without Roethlisberger and all that stuff. But Flores was on the cutting edge of being that next, Black head coach that just makes sense and just does the right thing. And he's not a splash hire. He's not a whatever. He just was getting the job done. Yeah. And so a lot of our wins weren't sexy. He just knew how to coach and get it out of the guys and get us to win. Mm-hmm. And so you need that on the NFL level. Honestly, this is sad that he just, I don't know, shot himself in the foot potentially. I'm pretty sure he might get some guilt job later, but who wants a guilt job, man? You want that guilt job, bro, or you want it to just get hired and be that pioneer and that guy to take those lumps behind closed doors, for the other black coaches that are going to come down the line. Because I do agree with you. A lot of the coaches that are coaching now have been coaching for decades.
Yeah.
And back when they started coaching, there was no way in hell there was going to be a black coach back then.
Yeah.
It just was not a thing. Honestly, back when those guys started coaching, there was no way in hell there was going to be a black starting quarterback.
Right. Yeah.
So those guys come from an era, and they were groomed in an era, and they have so much knowledge dating back from an era where all that stuff was going on. And so when you stack resumes, it's like, yeah, I see you are all Big Ten. I see that you played 3 years in the NFL. I see you as a coaching assistant this many years at whatever. But when you started your college career, this guy was already coaching for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy, he knows how to coach. He knows the West Coast offense. I'm sorry, sorry you can't. And it's like, what the hell, And so for Flores, after 3 gigs, you went around in three job interviews. You suing a whole NFL. That's rough to me, man. And that's what I'm saying. I just really wish he had somebody talk to him before he pulled the trigger on this, because I thought he was going to have a job by the end of this coaching carousel.
Yeah, there's still 5. I think there's still 5 vacancies left. So 4 of them, I feel the same way. The only one that he wasn't going to get was obviously the Dolphins, because that's the team that let him go. But there's like 4 vacancies left. There's no reason to assume that he didn't have a realistic shot at those jobs. It's just, I agree. I think this is a knee-jerk move. I think he pulled the trigger on that too fast. I think it was that, and I don't know this for a fact, I think the Belichick text gaslit him. It gaslit him, because it was just like, damn, like, I'm supposed to interview these guys in a few days and they already got their guy. Like, and so that triggered him into just overdrive.
And I think that's his proof, because my whole thing was, how do you prove racism in court, bro? Good luck, because Kaepernick couldn't do it. I think he did. I think he won some settlement or whatever the hell. But I'm like, bro, good luck proving racism. I think the card he's going to pull is, they already knew the coach they were going to hire before they even interviewed their black guy. And so then they interviewed their black guy long after they already knew the guy that they were going to hire. So they were just going through the process just so they can go through the process, just to make it look good. Oh, let's get Flores in here so we can do our affirmative action this week. All right, hey, affirmative action. How's it going? Hey, all right, hey, get bye. And then he goes, that wasn't a real interview. And then so for him going, hey man, I'm not really getting interviewed out here. They're just interviewing me for window dressing so they can check off some box on their diversity scale. And so I get that too. But at the same time, I still felt like he was going to get a job somewhere.
That's the thing. And see, my thing is, I get that. And maybe this is just my conservative approach to stuff like this. I'm the type of person who likes to compile evidence before I go on a tirade. I like to know. I like to definitively know. I like to be able to gather my evidence and prove a pattern of behavior and consistency. If a person lies to me one time, I can't just be like, oh, you're a liar. I have to gather a body of work that shows that you have lied to me repeatedly over the course of a period of time in order for me to feel just in suggesting that that's a part of your nature. And so, and I don't know if this type of thing has happened to him before, but if it hasn't been public knowledge. To my knowledge, this is the first time where he's encountered something like this, where he was dead before he even walked through the door because the team already had the job. So like, you can't, I think that it is a better strategic move to, sort of document these instances over several times before you decide, okay, now it's time for me to go ahead and take this to court because this keeps happening. As far as we know, this is the first time this has happened to him specifically. So, it's kind of like he's using this as a way to catapult himself into that stratosphere of trying to take down the machine because it's in need of being taken down. And like my thing, first of all, good luck with that. Because my thing is like, okay, that's why I brought up the point about him getting some kind of settlement and getting money from it. Because what are you going to do? You think you're going to you really think that you're going to be a change agent? Like the only way that you could possibly change things is if somehow, some way, you win such a landmark, historic victory that forces these franchises to sell to minority ownership. You're not going to change anything. You're not going to change nothing. And so if that's not going to happen, and that's the only way to change it, and trust me, people, that's the only way to change this, you're not doing anything. What are you going to make the NFL go back and reevaluate the Rooney Rule and make it more ironclad? You cannot make people care about hiring black coaches. You can't do that unless you're gonna strap them to, unless you're going to give them mind control and make them care. You're not going to change. You can't change it. You can't make people care about. You cannot legislate desire. You can't legislate what's in somebody's heart. You can't make someone care. So even if I want to cut you a check because, okay, fine, you got me, I was being racist. Even if that is the case, fine, here's this $10 million, go away. I still own my $1 billion franchise and I'm still going to run it the way I want. You can't change that. So, that's pretty much what this is, man. A lot of this to me is just exercises in futility. And, I find it funny because it's like instantly, it's like, where's the beef? As soon as these stories break, you get all of these freaking pundits and commentators and opinion people on these damn radio shows and on these TV shows. Oh, the NFL's this and the NFL's that. This is such a problem, blah, 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 blah. And so now me as a viewer, I'm going to have to sit here. Well, actually, I don't because I can just change the channel. But if I am watching these shows, I have to subject myself to now the next 2 to 3 weeks of the NFL is this and the NFL is that and racism this and racism that and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just over it, man. I'm so tone deaf, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just, ended with saying that, again, man, this is just unfortunate. I'm a big fan of Flores. Never heard of the guy until he came to the Dolphins, but liked everything he was doing and standing for when he was out there, at least coaching those guys. He seemed real no nonsense. I just really liked it, man. Yeah, I really was liking it. I liked the discipline. I liked the whole angle. So if pros don't work out for him, I would like to see him be successful somewhere in college. But I think the guy I think coaching also has an it factor. And I think coaches like Belichick have an it factor. I think coaches like the one in McVay and for the Rams, he has an it factor. The guy he was coaching against, Shanahan, he has it. Mm-hmm. And I think Flores has the same type of, and Tomlin too. Tomlin, not big games, but, duration coaching. I'm pretty sure like managing the team. Like if you want a coach to coach your team for 1 year, give me Tomlin, because I know those guys are going to be whipped into shape by the season's end type of thing. And I think the same thing about Flores. He was young and upcoming. I was excited that we had him. And then we can have him for the next 20 years if we want it.
Yeah.
And for this to just go down like this, and then for him to feel so obligated to file for such a touchy thing where you could literally, suicide your career, like you said, man. I just was like, oh man, this is rough. So that's a large wave of emotions I had for a guy that I'm a fan of. So I wish the best for him. I don't know how this is going to work. It doesn't sound like it's going to pan out well. But hey, man, go the college route. I would like to see you coach in college, bro.
It's going to be very hard for him to win that. It is like them people, the Broncos and the NFL and the Giants. They got papers on papers and documentation and. They got notations on the meetings. They got a note taker in the meeting. They got recordings. You're not just going to be able to waltz up in there and say, hey, I was a victim of racist hiring practices.
he talked to somebody.
Yeah,
He
clearly.
talked to somebody. They
Yeah.
went to a lawyer.
It was
The
probably
lawyer,
some civil rights lawyer or something.
yeah, the lawyer
Yeah.
said, "Wait, they said what? You have those text messages? Yeah, I have those text messages right here." So they have this. And when did they interview? You were the only black person? Yeah, yeah. Well, it looks like we have ourselves a timeline. We got ourselves a case. It's like, Flores, think of how much money you gonna make overall in your career coaching in the NFL versus this little lick you gonna get for this lawsuit. And that's the part that's just baffling. So I think he just had the wrong people in his corner, man.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
more best of luck to you, Mr. Flores, man.
Yeah.
Best of luck, bro.
Yeah, same. All right, yeah, we'll go ahead and close it out, man. Appreciate everybody for tuning into the stream. We actually had at 1.4, we had 4 views on the stream, so appreciate everybody for tuning in, man. As usual, you can always check out consciousapproach.com, the website for the full content library. You can also follow the Conscious Approach page on Instagram at ConApproach, ConApproach, as well as on Facebook at Conscious Approach, the normal spelling. Wherever you watch this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube, like the page if you're watching this on Facebook. Also hit the share button, share this on your page if you like the commentary. Always appreciate you supporting logical content. You can find me on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. I'm also on Facebook at Javis Ogden, JVISOGDEN, as well as on Twitter as well at JVWins. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hit the subscribe button so you can get those notifications for new content. Share it wherever you see fit. Keep supporting the channel, and we'll definitely see you on the flip side.
Yes, sir. And the name is Dogon SS. You can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS and on YouTube at Dogon SS. You can go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications for whenever I drop some videos. But more or less, you can catch me over here at the Conscious Approach, chilling with JV Wins, doing these live streams once a week. That's how we try to do these things. So, but yeah, man, as always, man, keep it player, stay calm, keep it neutral. Don't be too high, don't be too low. Take some time for yourself every day, whether it's at the beginning of the day or end of the day, but keep a little bit of self for yourself. And yeah, man, don't be following those Joneses. And yeah, man, stay solid. You know?
Yeah. Please think for yourself, people. Think for yourself. For sure. But until next time, we're gonna sign off. We'll see you later.